Eritrea. What would you say that the country has achieved during these 2 decades?
Well, a lot. The country is peaceful, it's stable, people enjoy human security. We are a diverse society, 9 ethnic groups, 2 major religions, in a region which is being racked with differences and violence. We've been able to establish a very harmonious relationship between our people. We have very close ties between government and society in Eritrea. We have made a lot of progress in health, in education, in the economy, in the rights of our women and youth in Eritrea. And we've achieved all of this in a difficult neighborhood with many challenges and with very little outside assistance.
So there are no problems at all?
Yeah, of course there are problems. Life is full of problems. There is no country in the world that has no problems.
What would you say are the biggest problems of Eritrea?
For Eritrea, I think the biggest problem is the fact that we face problems with our neighbor Ethiopia, which is occupying sovereign Eritrean territory in violation of a binding international arbitration, UN Security Council resolutions and international law. The fact that we don't have peace means a lot of opportunities have been lost and continue to be lost. We would like to have peace, normalized relations with all our neighbors that will help us improve our economy and the quality of life of our people. The other major challenge, of course, is that we still remain a poor country and our economy is still weak. Our people still face lots of difficulties. So those are the major challenges and difficulties that we have in Eritrea.
The United Nations, they are supporting Eritrea in this conflict with Ethiopia. But in general, what measures would you like to see that should be taken from the international society to solve this conflict?
Well, everyone says, the United Nations, all European countries, including Sweden, say that Eritrea is on the right. It has law and international legality on its side. It has the higher moral ground on its side on this issue. Unfortunately, nothing has been done about it. And no measures have been taken against Ethiopia to persuade it to comply with its international treaty obligations and vacate territory that it's occupying illegally. The main problem has been the United States' position on this. The United States, which believes that its interests or its main interest in the region is fighting terrorism or counter-terrorism is the main strategy for the United States. It believes that Ethiopia is its main ally in the region, so it's turning a blind eye, not just on the border problem with Eritrea, but it's turning a blind eye also on internal Ethiopian issues when the government is clearly trespassing its obligations to its own citizens as well.
So what do you expect from the international society?
Well, I think measures need to be taken to persuade Ethiopia to comply. The United Nations have been violated, no measures have been taken. The European Union continues to provide billions of dollars to Ethiopia every year. Ethiopia gets $3 billion every year, not just from the European Union, but the majority of it coming from the European Union as assistance. If pressure and measures, including targeted sanctions against the Ethiopia's rulers, are taken, then we begin to see a change. The problem is that the continued conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia is at the heart of much that's happening in the Horn of Africa. If there was peace between Ethiopia and Eritrea, it would contribute immensely to peace in the Horn of Africa. It would help to bring the Somali conflict into a resolution. It would help in the situation in the Sudan. the whole region would be much more peaceful. With the conflict between Ethiopia and Eritrea, we have bigger problems in the whole region. And I'm sure you've been following developments. Recently, the Ethiopian government has been threatening war against Eritrea, the use of force. They're openly talking about taking military action against Eritrea. The threat to use force is a violation of the UN Charter, it's a violation of international law. Unfortunately, not much has been done in that regard as well.
There are quite many Eritreans leaving the country. How have these Eritreans in exile contributed to the development of the country since the independence?
Well, the Eritrean diaspora has always been a big asset for Eritrea, not only since independence, but also during our long national liberation struggle.
In what way?
Well, they contributed politically, they were our voice, they were our ambassadors, they explained our cause to the communities where they live, they supported the struggle financially, materially. Many joined the liberation struggle from abroad. I consider myself a member of the diaspora. I was living in the United States and contributed to Eritrea while I was there, and then went and joined our movement. The same thing today. The Eritrean community is a mainstay of the country. They are politically active. They defend Eritrea's cause. They maintain their culture, their identity as Eritreans abroad. They enjoy Eritrean citizenship. They support the development effort in the country. Remittances are an important contribution to our economy. They support their families. They visit Eritrea, especially during the summer, in large numbers. So the Eritrean diaspora, including the youth, are an important asset for the country. For Eritrea, unlike many countries, Eritrea considers, according to the Eritrean constitution, that any Eritrean born anywhere, but born to an Eritrean mother or an Eritrean father, is an Eritrean by birth as far as Eritrea is concerned. So all Eritreans all over the world have Eritrean citizenship, and they also want to take the citizenship of the countries where they are. That's okay with Eritrea. And so there's this very special relationship and very close ties with the Eritrean government, and its officials continue to engage Eritreans wherever they are.
You said that they're also contributing financially. How does that work?
Well, their contribution mainly is to the money that they send to their families. That's the main contribution. They also build houses in Eritrea, they have businesses in Eritrea. They come to Eritrea every year, spend. There are tourists, as well, if you will, in the country, in the sense that they come from abroad and travel. So those are the main aspects of the contribution they make. They also contribute 2% of their income to the country, because they also enjoy all the rights of an Eritrean citizen. They're treated as an Eritrean citizen. Someone can live in Stockholm and still get land in his village or land in the country as an Eritrean citizen. So, these are some of the ways that contributions are made to the country.
And these 2%, are they obligatory or voluntary?
Well, if you are an Eritrean citizen and you want your rights as an Eritrean citizen, you have to pay this contribution to the country. If you want to live as a Swedish citizen and not bother about Eritrean citizenship, but just travel to the country and maintain your heritage, you can do that as well. But if you're going to come to Eritrea as an Eritrean citizen and ask the rights of an Eritrean citizen, for example, if you ask for licenses that are only given to Eritrean citizens, whether they live in Eritrea or abroad, if you want land or other services in the country that are for Eritrean citizens, then you would have to make major contribution.
I've never heard this system before. Is it legally okay for one country to take tax?
It's not taxes. It's not taxes, it's a contribution, and they don't have to do it. Okay. As I said, they do it if they want their rights as citizens in Eritrea. I said 2%. 2% is minimum. Most Eritreans pay much more than 2% as a contribution and voluntarily to Eritrea. Even if there was no 2% contribution that the government of Eritrea asks, the real contribution is much, much more. This has been the tradition in Eritrean societies all over the past 40, 50 years, even before we were an independent state. Eritrean citizens contribute anything between 15 to 20% of their income to their country and to their families. That's the main contribution. It's not just that, it takes many forms. People go on the streets and ask for contribution to the Eritrean economy. As I said, they support their families, they come and invest, they buy houses. So anywhere between 15 and 20% of their income goes to Eritrea, and it's an important contribution to the country, but it's also an important contribution to them. One of the strengths of the Eritrean community and the fact that it's tight-knit and almost everywhere law-abiding, very peaceful. If you go to any country, anywhere in the world, you'll find that Eritreans are the communities that are most peaceful, most law-abiding, least involved in crimes, least affected by social evils like drugs. You go that invariably, anywhere in the world, you find that Eritrean communities are like that. And one of the reasons is their very close ties to their country, to their culture, to their tradition and identity. So in a way it's a contribution to Eritrea, but it's also a contribution to the countries where they live. We have around 20,000 Eritreans living in Sweden. Yes, they benefit from their presence here, they go to school, they find jobs, but they also make major contributions to the societies where they live because they work, they pay their taxes, they're law-abiding, they're good representatives, not just of Eritrea, but also of Sweden. And I think one of the secrets for that is this very close ties with their home country and its culture.
So nobody's forced to pay these taxes or whatever?
No. How can we force anyone that lives in Sweden?
I just heard that people who want to get their documents, their original documents, for instance, from Eritrea, have to pay these 2%. If they haven't been paying for years and they want their birth certificate or some kind of original document, they have to come here, and before getting it, they have to pay. Is that only rumors?
There are lots of stories, stories also that say that they cannot go back home if they have not paid this 2% tax. The majority of Eritreans living in Sweden have Eritrean identity papers, they have Eritrean passports, they are Eritrean citizens, but there are Eritreans by birth who have not even bothered to take Eritrean citizenship. And that's perfectly okay for us. I mean, we want them to take Eritrean citizens, but they haven't for one reason or another. And they can come as Swedish citizens to Eritrea if they want to, although they have not taken Eritrean citizenship. So Eritrea does not prevent anyone from that. Any obligation that Eritrea has, if you're a Swedish citizen, for instance, non-Eritrean, even by birth or by heritage, and there are legal obligations towards you for Eritrea, we'll do it as a Swedish citizen. If you're asking services from Eritrea as an Eritrean citizen, okay, then you have to have made your contribution to the country to enjoy your rights as an Eritrean citizen. If you choose not to, that's your choice.
Okay. You said there are 20,000 Eritreans living in Sweden.
More or less, yes.
More or less. But not all support the regime. What is your comment on the people who are working against it?
Well, that's a very small minority who happen to be working with the Ethiopian government, are part of the Ethiopian effort to undermine Eritrea. We always have had a small minority of people like that all the time, even during our independence struggle, 30-year war, when we had to face enemies that are much bigger than us and supported by the major powers in the world. Even then, the majority were with the liberation struggle, with the independence struggle. Some were opposed to it. They wanted Eritrea to remain under Ethiopian occupation. Same thing. Even today, there's a small minority of people who are opposed to the very idea of the existence of a viable Eritrean state, and are working glove in hand with the Ethiopian government. These are some people who are based in Addis Ababa, or who go to Addis Ababa of Ethiopia and try to work with the Ethiopian government to undermine Eritrea. It's only normal. I don't believe there is any society anywhere in the world where there's 100% support for any idea or for any government. So we have it here as well. It's a small minority of people, but the majority are for the development of an independent Eritrean state, and that's one of the strengths we have. That's one of the strengths we have always had. That's one of the strengths that we want to maintain. That's why we continue to engage with our community and with our young people.
During the first years of independence, you wrote a constitution, but I have understood that it hasn't yet been ratified. Why?
No, it was ratified in 1997. It has been ratified. It is operational. That's the constitution of the country even today. There's one thing that has not happened, and that is we have not had national elections. The reason we have not had national elections is because of the conflict that broke out between us and Ethiopia, and that still has not come to an end. That's the only thing that will happen. Then something that we have discussed with our people, with our communities, and the priority for our population is that we focus on bringing this conflict to an end, and secondly, developing the economy of the country. This is a running, continuing dialogue we have with our population. We'll have a meeting today. You can go there, and if you ask if this is a serious problem for them, or if this is a priority for this community, you can find the answer from them. You don't have to hear it from me. Same thing in Eritrea. For us, yes, we have not had elections for some time. But the relations between the government and the population is very close. It's something that takes place on a regular basis, this dialogue between society and government. So with the consent of our population, we have postponed these elections. We have had local elections, we have had regional elections, but we have not had national elections. It's on the program. And hopefully we can get this conflict behind us, then there will be no problem.
Do you consider the country a democracy during this period?
Well, it's a difficult question for me in the sense that, what do you consider democracies in our region of the world?
Democracy is a democracy all over the place. It doesn't matter where.
Is that true? Because what I'm saying is we had countries like Egypt, which were considered democracies. They had their elections and their political parties, so-called democracies, and we know what happened under the veneer of a democratic political system. There was disenfranchisement of the population. That's what we have had in Africa, in Asia, in many places. We have sham elections. We have fraudulent elections. We have the monopoly of political and economic power by small minorities under the cover of a democratic political system, which is not true. I believe democracy is a work in progress. It's something that has to be built over time, that it cannot be separated from economic and social and educational development in the country. This is something that we're trying to do. If I take the sense of a democracy, meaning a government that is set up by the people, works for the people. If I take that sense of democracy, I would say Eritrea is a democracy, a government by the people, of the people, and for the people. Because this is what this government does. It's something that is very close. Eritrean officials, including the president, live in the same neighborhood as others. The children go to the same schools as the children of any ordinary citizen. His wife goes to the same hospital as other women in the country. This is not a ruling class in any sense of the word. It's a government that's very close to the population. If I look at it from that perspective, I can talk about democracy. If democracy is just meant to be, elections and political parties, then you could say Eritrea is still not there. But yes, we're also for elections. We're for political pluralism, but we believe nation building and democracy building is a political process rather than a one-off event.
It's interesting because year after year, organizations like Amnesty and Reporters Without Borders, Human Rights Watch, etc., they rate the freedom of expression and they rate the democratic situation in the countries all over the world. And Eritrea is always on the last place or close to the last
Very
place.
low.
Very low. Why do you think?
Well, I think we're unfairly treated, and one of the reasons is we happen to have a problem with the United States, and we have received a lot of negative media coverage. I would.
By who? By who?
By the dominant media in the world, and also by the organizations that you just mentioned. I wish that we would be rated, from the vantage point of our citizens. I would like our citizens to rate us and give us the score for our performance. If it comes to that, I'm much more comfortable. And I know the Eritrean government gets much better grades from its own people than from outsiders. The problem we have is, look at what kind of rating Tunisia was getting until last January. If you look at the press and its reports of Tunisia prior to January of 2011, you'd get a different picture. Tunisia was being presented as a success story to all of us. And then suddenly it was this dictatorial, autocratic regime. So sometimes media reports and reports of the various organizations that you mentioned, with all due respect to them and some of the excellent work that they do, does not really reflect the realities in the countries and in societies. So, I believe that they need to look at the situation in Eritrea much more closely, in a much better way, and try to look at it from the standpoint of the citizens of that country, because there are many things that are important to a citizen. It's not just how many papers there are or things like that. Things like, can an individual comfortably voice his opinions? Can he say to government officials, does he feel that his rights and dignity are respected in the country, or her rights are respected in the country? Is there equal access to things? Does the government care, for the well-being of the population? Those are the factors that are important for my people. And like I said, I believe that the government of Eritrea scores very highly when it's judged by its population, but not so highly when it's judged by outsiders. What we have now is there are many countries which have very high degrees of external legitimacy and very little internal legitimacy. And this has been a problem. Countries like Egypt and Mubarak, had very high degrees of international legitimacy, but very little, rock bottom, internal Egyptian people legitimacy. Eritrea happens to be a country which has, in my view, high degrees of internal Eritrean people legitimacy.
Still, there are quite many. I heard that this morning. I heard that there are like 40,000 political prisoners in your prisons. What is your comment?
I don't believe, the total number of all prisoners in the country, all prisoners, including, people in prison because of civil cases or criminal cases, is more than, a few thousand. Live around 40,000 for political prisoners. It's not true. It's, as I said, one problem that we face in the age where we live is that anyone can say anything, and without any objectivity, without any accuracy, without any counter-checking of facts, and send it throughout the world. This is the problem. So any accusation, 40,000, political prisoners. All sorts of accusations are made, but it's not true. As I said, you need to come and see for yourself, and you can see what happens in the country. It's simply not true.
But do you admit that you have any political prisoners?
Well, we don't have political prisoners. What we have is people who were detained in the aftermath of the war we had with Ethiopia in 1998-2000 period. These are people, some of whom are officials of the Eritrean government, and people that they mobilized at that time, who at the most critical time of Eritrea's survival, during the height of the Eritrean war, people, including military commanders, who felt that Eritrea could not defend itself, that it had to give up, to raise a white flag, and who communicated with the enemy at that time in violation of their sacred tasks of defending the country. These are people who committed crimes against Eritrea's survival, who committed national security crimes against Eritrea. These are in the order of maybe 30 people or so. 15 of them were in the leaders of the country, and another 15 were associated with them very closely and were part of that plot to undermine the independence and sovereignty of the country. That's what we have.
And, well, as we both know, one of them is Dawit Issak, the Swedish Eritrean citizen. Why don't you put him on trial and the other persons if you are accusing them of committing this crime against the country? Why don't you put them on trial?
Well, as I said, they are part of a group. This group is composed, led by military commanders of the Eritrean government, of the Eritrean armed forces. They did what they did in cooperation with foreign countries.
Which foreign countries?
I wouldn't want to like to go into that, but in cooperation with foreign countries and with communications with the enemy that was trying to undermine Eritrean sovereignty and take over Eritrea by force, which is the Ethiopian government. This is what happened, as I said.
Do you have any proofs for that?
Definitely, we have proofs. Our population is knowledgeable about the facts. This was discussed in the Eritrean National Assembly. It's not a secret from our population. Population is aware of it. Again, as a society, as a population, we felt that the best way to deal with this is not to take them to court. We could take them to court-martial, a military court-martial, because many of them are military commanders and were at the Eritrean command post at that time. We felt that there was a better way to do it for us, for our society, and this is what we have decided. We paid a certain price for it externally, but we feel at the end of the day, what's most important for us is the consensus, the cohesion that we can create in our society. Our population is very understanding of this, of the steps that we have taken, something that we continue to explain to our population all the time. And I believe we have handled this in the best interests of the country and in the best interests of the population.
Since I'm a Swede, I'm very interested in my fellow citizen, Dawit Issak. What is his status today?
He's an Eritrean.
And a Swede.
He's much more an Eritrean than a Swede.
He's both?
He's much more Eritrean than a Swede. He was working in Eritrea not as a Swede. He was working in Eritrea as an Eritrean. He was given all the rights of an Eritrean citizen. So for me, he's an Eritrean citizen. Secondly, there are people with him who happen not to have any other citizenship, neither Swede or any other citizenship. They just happen to have one citizenship, and that's an Eritrean citizenship. And he cannot get any treatment different from other Eritreans who are with him, simply because he happens to have a Swedish citizenship. It would be wrong for Eritrea to treat him differently from others just because he happens to have Swedish citizenship. The issue, as I said, is what I described to you. It's a serious matter, and he enjoys the same rights as all other Eritrean citizens. He has the same obligations to the country as other Eritrean citizens. He's subjected to the same law, the same Eritrean law as any other of his fellow detainees.
But when I asked about his status, I meant, how is he now, physically and mentally?
Well, it's not something that I follow. It's not my area of responsibility. What I know is that the Eritrean government treats any prisoner with dignity, with respect, in the best possible of ways. This is a track record for us, not just our own citizens. During our long liberation war, we had captured more than 100,000 Ethiopian troops, and our record is that we treat even enemy prisoners of war in the humane way and provide them with humane treatment. And I'm sure that the people that we're talking about are also being treated in that manner.
And what about the reports that he's been tortured, that he's suffering from several diseases? He has diabetics and so on. Is that all lies?
Well, as I said, there are many accusations, many rumors, many unfounded accusations. If he has any medical condition, I'm sure the Eritrean government will provide him with the best of medical treatment that it is possible for the Eritrean government to provide. This is our standard operating procedure for anyone that is in our that is run afoul of the law and could be in detention. This is us. This is the way we treat our citizens even if they have committed crimes. You could talk about their families. These people who are in detention because of the issue that I mentioned earlier. They were government officials. They were given government housing, and that government housing is the best that we can offer our officials. And their families continue to live, in those same government residences that were given to them as ministers in the country. And their families have not been taken out from those houses, even though these people are not ministers anymore. Because again, they may have committed offenses, but their families are Eritreans. They are our colleagues. Many of them are part of our movement. Their children are our children. They are part of us. So if we did not, take even that measure, which is legally, something that we could do. Because if a house is given to someone because he's a government official and he's no longer a government official, then the government could legally, say that the family cannot live, continue to live there. But we didn't even do that. They are there. They will still work in government jobs. They enjoy whatever rights.
These people, they haven't done anything wrong.
Yes.
So that's a bit
Yes. But I'm saying they enjoy some privileges. Those privileges that were given to those people in detention because they were government officials, and those privileges have not been taken away.
But if we go back to the prisoners, I would just like to ask, as a human being to another human being, frankly, do you believe that these people that are being kept in prison, who are sitting in the area, do you think that they're getting treated with dignity? Frankly, do you think so?
This is the tradition of the Eritrean government. It's the tradition of the Eritrean movement. This is how we have treated, as I told you, even our enemies. Those people who committed massacres in Eritrea, who killed innocent civilians. The Ethiopian Air Force pilots were bombing our civilian population, and some of whom we captured. The Ethiopian generals, who were responsible for massacres in Eritrea, were treated humanely by our movement and by government. If we could do that, I really don't see why we could not treat our fellow Eritrean citizens, even if they committed crimes, worse than we treated our enemies.
Have you visited the area?
No.
But do you think it's dignity to treat a person in this way, that he's sitting for years without knowing when he will get released? I mean, you told me why there is no judgment, why there is no trial, but why can't you say that he and the other ones sitting there, they will sit for like 10 years or 20 years so that they know? What is the point in just letting them sit there?
Well, as I said, the issue and the case is a very serious one. It has involved huge losses in human life for Eritrea, the decisions that they took.
And what exactly what decision did Dawit Issak take?
Well, as I said, this is a group of people, and they were political leaders and military commanders of the Eritrean government.
But he was a journalist and a writer.
He was part of this group.
Why can't, if you're so sure, why can't you show the proofs to the Swedes? I mean, you know that we're always asking about
As
it.
I said, this is an Eritrean matter. This is an Eritrean matter.
But since he is our citizen
This is an Eritrean matter, and I have repeated myself. There can be no special favors and privileges to someone just because he happens to be to carry the citizenship of another country. This would be unfair for others who do not happen to have any other citizenship. This would be a denigration of Eritrean citizenship. If I provide favors to someone who happens to have another citizenship and do not extend the same favor to someone who is just my citizen. And as I said, I cannot treat anyone, the government of Eritrea cannot treat anyone differently just because they happen to have Swedish citizenship. For us, this is an Eritrean matter, and I think it should rest there.
But internationally, it's interesting also with the others who are sitting. I mean, they should have a trial as well, according to international law.
Definitely, but even in our conversation, we're talking about someone because he happens to have Swedish citizenship. And I'm 100% sure that if it wasn't for him, you would not even be raising this issue. in this interview.
I think I would.
And I don't think you would, because I do these interviews everywhere, and I am not asked this question. I am asked this question here in Sweden because Sweden, for some reason, has blown this issue out of proportion. It has forgotten about 150 years of relations between Eritrea and Sweden. It has forgotten about these 20,000 Eritrean citizens that live here in this country. It has forgotten about economic, trade, investment relations with Eritrea. Because, in my view, some Swedish tabloids, have made this a way of selling, of sensationalizing and selling their papers in this country. There are so many big issues in this world, so many big issues in this world, and they rarely get any mention in the Swedish press. Rarely get any mention in the Swedish press. And, as I said, because of this sensationalization of the issue, has become the and the only issue between Eritrea and Sweden. I believe it's a shame. I believe it should not continue. Yes, people can talk about anything. You can talk about Eritrea's human rights. You can talk about anything that you want to. But there is a country called Eritrea. There's a people called the Eritrean people. We happen to be 4 million people. We are doing well, despite challenges. We're part of a neighborhood where so much is at stake. We're being attacked by a much bigger country which is continuing to commit human crimes daily. Where's the Swedish press on this? Where? Last month, the Ethiopian government imprisoned 1,000 Oromos in Ethiopia. Is there any mention of this in the Swedish press?
I will mention it.
No, yeah, but it isn't there. It isn't there. Just today, Human Rights Watch said the Ethiopian government is violating the rights of the Ogaden people, and the United States is turning a blind eye because it considers Ethiopian ally. Crimes are being committed there. And where is the Swedish press on this? This is the issue that I think needs to be addressed. If we're going to be fair, I'm not saying you shouldn't mention this, but can there be any balance, any proportionality on this? And why is our community being harassed and attacked? This is an issue that is very serious. We're talking about the rights of one Swedish citizen. Why can't we talk about the rights of 20,000 Swedish citizens, of Eritrean origin, that are living here, who are children in school when they go to class? People there, their teachers and others, are harassing them for being Eritreans and speaking to them, children, speaking to them about this individual or that individual, or about the president in Eritrea being a dictator. Our communities, when they try to find a place where they can meet, are being refused to meet there. What's their crime? What offense have they done? Even if you don't like the Eritrean government, why can't the Eritrean citizens in this country, Swedish citizens, enjoy their rights as Swedish citizens here? Be able to meet, be able to affirm their identity, their culture. Even if they support the Eritrean government, don't they have the right to support the Eritrean government? What offense is that for them to support the Eritrean government? Why should they be denied of their rights just because they happen to support the Eritrean government? So this is something that our community feels on a daily basis, right here in Sweden.
Maria, 2 frågor bara.
Ja.
Fråga var han är, var han hålls fängslad någonstans.
Vad sa du bara?
Var han hålls fängslad, om du kan få information om det. Och också, kan svenska myndigheter besöka honom? Om inte, om de anser det vara eritreans, varför får inte familjen besöka honom? De två.
Can you also try to wrap it up as well?
Yes, sorry.
Two more questions.
Two more questions.
Seminar.
I understand all what you're saying, and this is a problem. It is. Still, I have 2 more questions about Dawit Issak. Could you tell me where he is? Is he in the area?
As I said, you seem to be sure where he is.
I'm asking you.
Yes. No, you have said it so many times in this interview. And I really don't believe it makes any difference. He's in Eritrea.
It makes a difference.
Why?
Because I think it's important for people, for his family, for his children, for his wife, and so to know where he is.
Well, as I said, they know where he is. It's not a secret. Everyone knows. They have been saying it so many times, but I really don't believe it makes any difference. He's in Eritrea.
And why can't anybody visit him? We're talking about dignity.
Again, as I said, this is a group of people who are charged with a special case in Eritrea. If you go to, if we talk about other detainees in Eritrea, you can go and visit them. Our prisons are open, their families visit them, they take meals to them when they want to, they visit them. As I said, this is a special case, and it came at a special period in Eritrean history. It has to do with the survival and the national sovereignty of Eritrea. And again, as I would like to say, I wish that the Swedish press would be balanced, including Swedish television, and bring the realities of Eritrea to the Swedish public, the realities of Swedish Eritrean interests, the long history and the relations between Sweden and Eritrea. I'm appealing for fairness, for balance in the coverage of the Swedish media as far as Eritrea and the Swedish-Eritrean relations are concerned. Even this interview that we're doing, I believe, is an indication of the unfairness and the lack of balance in the coverage of issues. Because, I don't know, half of the questions you asked me are about one particular issue.
I had quite many other questions as well. Thank you so much for receiving us.
Thank you.
Thank you.